morning and welcome to UATV. Today is the snap Parliamentary Elections Day here in Ukraine, and UATV is watching closely all the events. This special bulletin we're holding at the walls of the Central Election Commission will keep a close eye on all the events connected with the parliamentary elections, so please stay tuned with UATV. And first this hour we go to our correspondent Olga Mikhailuk, who's working inside the Central Election Commission. So, hello Olga, can you update us on the latest?
Hello, Tonya. Polling stations should have opened for 2 hours. 2 hours ago. We'll find out if all of them started work on time or if there were any violations. We'll know it at 11 during the press briefing of Tatiana Slipachuk, the head of Ukraine's Central Election Commission. But for now, we have prepared an infographic explaining why the election is taking place now, but not on October 27th, as it was planned earlier. So let's take a look. The snap parliamentary elections are being held in Ukraine today. They were announced after the 6th president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, took office. On May 20th, during his inauguration speech in parliament, he announced that he dissolves the 8th convocation of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. On the very next day, after consulting with the leaders of parliamentary factions, the president signed a decree on the dissolution of the Verkhovna Rada and set the day for the snap election, July 21, 2019. According to the president, the legal basis for this was the absence of a parliamentary coalition since 2016, as well as low level of citizens' trust in the institution. The survey held by the Razumkov Center in February showed that the level of Ukrainians' confidence in the parliament did not exceed 12%. Their colleagues from the Kyiv International Institute of Sociology conducted their own survey in December. Their result was 8%. According to the Constitution, snap parliamentary elections are held within 60 days from the date of publication of the decision on early dissolution of the parliament. The current legislation on elections in Ukraine states that the parliament is elected using a mixed electoral system. Half of the candidates are chosen from the closed party list, the other half from constituencies. The entry barrier is 5% of the votes. The parliament consists of 450 MPs. However, back in 2014, after Russia annexed Crimea and began the aggression in eastern Ukraine, part of the single-member districts were occupied. There are 10 districts in Crimea and 2 in Sevastopol, 9 districts in the Donetsk region, 6 districts in Luhansk region. In 2019, 424 deputies will be elected to the Verkhovna Rada. The number of registered candidates is hundreds of times more, 5,984. There are 22 parties running for parliament in the nationwide multi-member constituency. They have 2,764 people in their lists. As for 199 single-member districts, 3,220 candidates are running there. 1,447 people were nominated by political parties. 1,773 persons are self-nominees. On average, the competition is 13 people per seat. The number of the list were determined by drawing lots. The Central Election Commission has printed more than 63 million ballot papers. They differ in colors and size. Ballot papers for single-member constituencies differ depending on the number of candidates. Up to 6 candidates, 20 by 20 centimeters, up to 11 candidates, 20 by 30 centimeters, up to 18 20 by 40 centimeters up to 33 candidates, 20 by 60 centimeters up to 50, 20 by 80 centimeters, and the longest up to 60, 20 by 90 centimeters. The shortest list in a constituency in the city of Khmelnytsky features 5 candidates. The longest one consists of 46 names. In single-member districts, the candidate who receives the most votes wins. If 2 candidates get the same amount of votes, the second round of voting is held. It should take place no later than 2 weeks after the Central Election Commission decided that the second round is necessary. The Central Election Commission needs to announce the official results for the election no later than on the 15th day since the voting, by August 5th. By August 10th, the results should be published in the official press. According to the Constitution, the Parliament should hold its first session no later than on the 30th day after the results of the election are officially announced, which is by September 9th, 2019. However, according to the President's party, it is planned to hold the session in August. It may take place on August 24th and be dedicated to Ukraine's Independence Day. So, Tonya, that's all what I have for now. All the latest data from Central Election Commission in our next news bulletin. Back to you, Tonya.
Thank you so much, Olga. That was Olga Mikhailuk with the latest updates from the Central Election Commission. Now we go to our correspondent Natalia Chikatun, who is currently at one of the polling stations here in Kyiv. So hello, Natalia, and let us know what is the current turnout so far.
Hello, Tanya. Voting at this polling station here in Kyiv is currently underway with 2,453 people registered to vote in favor of 1 out of 22 parties. This polling station opened at 8 a.m. Kyiv time and is going to operate until 8 p.m. The procedure is quite simple. Voters just take 2 ballots and go to one out of these booths over there. There is also one voting booth for people with disabilities. After choosing their candidates, voters cast their ballots over here. Despite it's being like that early, some voters came and voted. For example, we met here one woman who is going on vacation today, but still she came like at 8 a.m. Kyiv time. Let's listen to her.
I'm leaving for vacation in an hour. That's why I came so early. Every election is important.
I will vote and then I have to go to work. We're hoping for the best, no matter who wins.
I believe that a young team will come and we won't have what we had before.
I must add that the law and order are ensured today by the National Guard, the National Police, as well as border guards. In addition, Ukrainian air support is also involved, and in 2 hours President Volodymyr Zelensky is also expected to cast his ballot at this very polling station. As a reminder, it was his decision to dissolve the parliament of the 9th convocation, so he announced a snap election during his inauguration speech. And speaking about turnout, as of now it is unknown because it will be announced just at 11 a.m. That's all we have for you this hour. Back to you, Tanya.
Thank you so much, Natalia. That was UATV correspondent Natalia Chikatun reporting from one of the polling stations here in Kyiv, where people are voting at the snap parliamentary elections today. Now, Ukrainians abroad are also voting in the election. There are 102 polling stations operating in consulates and embassies in 72 countries. Ukraine's Central Election Commission has sent out almost 450,000 ballots. The voting takes place from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m. local time. Ukrainians in Australia were the first to start casting their ballots. The polling station in Canberra opened at 1 a.m. Kyiv time.
It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon in Australia. Obviously, Australia and New Zealand were one of the first places where voting was taking place. My understanding that the number of people who have registered for voting and intended to vote hasn't been very, very strong. Probably the biggest problem we have in Australia is that there is only one polling place, and that is in Canberra, which is the capital of Australia, where the embassy is. And there is the problem of distance. So people, for example, from Western Australia would have to travel 4 hours by plane, from Melbourne an hour and a half. But I can say that speaking to people prior to the elections. There is a sense of uncertainty. People are not sure what's going to happen in Ukraine, and I think we have a saying in English: the jury's out as to what the result will be.
And now let's see what will be on the agenda of the newly elected Verkhovna Rada. Among the thousands of bills submitted, which ones should be priorities? Our correspondent spoke to some experts who explained how the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine could work most effectively. Let's take a look.
5,413 bills are waiting to be considered by Ukrainian parliamentary committees. Experts suggest that the upcoming 9th convocation start its work by reducing the number.
Minimum 3,000 to 4,000 bills could be skipped, since it takes time. The time of committees and the Verkhovna Rada is used inefficiently. Some of the submitted bills aren't relevant or useful.
According to experts, ensuring the work of the anti-corruption court should be among the first tasks on the agenda. The institution will be officially launched on September 5th, but it already has a lot of cases to consider. The workload could be reduced by adopting some legislative amendments.
There's a bill which was submitted by the President, which limits the amount of these cases and sends the cases which are investigated by the National Anti-Corruption Bureau and the Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office to the Anti-Corruption Court. Without adopting additional legislation, more than 3,950 cases would have to be accepted. It's a lot for the number of judges that we have now.
The Parliamentary Foreign Affairs Committee is responsible for cooperation with the UN, the European Council, NATO, the World Trade Organization, and other international institutions. During its term of office, it has ratified free trade agreements with Canada and Israel, and terminated the Russian-Ukrainian Friendship Treaty. MP Hanna Hopko believes that it's important for the new convocation to continue Ukraine's European course.
Assertive foreign policy and the course for the European Union and NATO must continue, as well as the issues of national identity. We worked with the Bundestag regarding Germany's historical responsibility before Ukraine and recognizing the Holodomor as a genocide. I hope that the next convocation will work in this direction.
MP Oleksiy Ryabchin says that it's also important to develop the production of energy resources and at the same time work on the program of energy saving.
Верховна Рада стала одним з перших парламентів в світі, який ратифікував, наприклад, Паризьку кліматичну угоду.
The Verkhovna Rada, for example, became one of the first parliaments in the world to ratify the Paris Climate Agreement. We made it so that electric cars are the cheapest in Ukraine, but we need to add to energy efficiency to reduce the use of foreign fuel, diesel, gas, and for this money to stay here in Ukraine.
Some find it important to remember social bills, especially considering the number of service people returning from the front line.
It's necessary to create multidisciplinary brigades, teams of doctors dealing with rehabilitation. For example, after surgeries. We need to engage health resorts with unique natural resources, which simply aren't used.
Lawyer Edward Bahirov says it's also important to protect soldiers' rights.
Unfortunately, Ukraine hasn't legally defined the status of military actions with Russia. But anyway, if the parliament ratifies the Rome Statute and Ukraine's claims in international military tribunals and courts, then their decisions, which will state that Ukrainian citizens, service people held captive by Russia, are prisoners of war, it will have legal force.
Due to the lack of the market and the moratorium on the sale of farmland since 2001, the Ukrainian economy annually loses 1% of GDP growth. This amounts to $22.5 billion. The programs of many parties include the promise to lift the ban on selling farmland. Therefore, experts believe it's likely to be done.
There will be serious pressure on Ukraine from international financial organizations, mainly the IMF and the World Bank, because, as we remember, this issue has already been on the agenda of our relations with the IMF, but we didn't get round to dealing with it. I believe that in 2020, lifting the moratorium will be one of Ukraine's conditions for receiving tranches.
The 8th convocation of the Verkhovna Rada adopted 2,726 regulatory documents. Only 982 of them became laws. Reported by Olha Mikhailyuk, UATV.
That is the latest news we have for you this hour. Thank you so much for joining. Let me remind you that today in Ukraine there is a snap parliamentary election day, and UATV will be keeping a close eye on all the events connected to this event. Latest developments are always available on our social media pages on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, and also on our official website, uatv.ua. The next bulletin is, as usual, 2 hours away, so please stay tuned with UATV for more. I'm Antonina Antosha. I'll see you in a bit. Good morning from Ukraine.